Coming up, unusual activity,
oil leaks. Well, that is a first.
an enormous 80s developed 12-cylinder drivetrain comes out.
So many broken BMWs. Where to start? Bonjour and welcome back to Project Marseille. 1991 E31 850i with the glorious 12-cylinder engine under the hood paired with the 6-speed manual transmission. It's been, well, basically forever since we last worked on it, but it's time to finally continue. We are going to completely, and I mean completely, restore this thing. Now we're gonna bring it inside, drop the engine and gearbox out, overhaul everything and anything mechanically, and then the car is going to Poland to Arthur and David to get a fresh paint job. We're sticking with the original Calypso red. I'm so excited, so let's start. Actually, I first need to connect the battery.
At the end of part 4 of this series, I said we are going with OEM Plus build for this project and that we are going to hot dog this engine. In normal words, up the power of this 8 series while maintaining its originality. The 850i is powered by a 5-liter M70 B50 V12 engine that produces 300 horsepower. This particular example has over 200,000 kilometers, it's been off the road for well over 10 years and it's not in the greatest shape.
Rod bearing.
It's smoking a bit, leaking oil, timing chain noise is present, needs a new clutch and so on. Therefore, the whole lot is coming out for a refresh. My goal is to, well, have a perfect working engine, but also bring the power from 300 horsepower to around 375 horsepower. That is 850i CSI territory and actually a big task. To achieve that, we are going to use the later M73 B54 engine like the one Project Dubai E31 850i has. I scored one of these engines in what appears nearly new condition with supposedly just 5,000 kilometers. It came out of E31 850HL, hydrogen-powered 7 series from 2001. It's a very interesting engine and prototype and we'll go into details later down the road. I was initially planning to use M73 block with old M70 heads because E31 exhaust manifolds are different, but since then I decided to keep M73 heads and I had custom headers made by Suara Performance to overcome the exhaust manifold issue. In short, to make this work, we'll have to use some parts from the old M70 engine in combination with the M73 block and heads. Then we'll hot dog it with sportier camshafts, modified engine computers, different fuel injectors, and headers. The end result should be a stock, oil-looking 12-cylinder engine from the outside that's making around 375 PS. I was planning to take the car for a dyno prior to taking the engine out so we have a clear before and after, but unfortunately the earliest appointment I could get on a dyno was in 2 months and I didn't want further delays.
Oh! Oil leaks. Well, that is a first. Whoa! Thought there was another bolt. If you needed further proof that this car was sitting in a garden for the last 10 years, that's not even a good extension. I'm not gonna go in any particular order, but I'm just gonna start removing stuff and prep the engine for removal. The maps are gonna go out for testing to extraclassics.de. Perfect. We need to disconnect 2 fuel lines in the back. That's all of the wiring in front of the engine disconnected. Disconnect the breather valves. disconnect the AC compressor connector. Now we need to disconnect the AC compressor lines, and this is still the old R12 system. So we'll need to upgrade it to R134A. Yep, completely empty, so we're safe to remove the lines. I am bagging and tagging and everything, and if something is not good, like this bolt for example, I'm making a list so I know what I need to order when the assembly time comes. Oh, there it is. Well, I'm here, I'm gonna remove the ground cable on the engine mount, and yes, the battery is already disconnected. We have starter wires here, which you can't even see. Snap, pop, crackle. I forgot to hit the record, but I removed the oil filter so that the oil from the housing can drain into the pan. And now we're gonna go underneath and drain the oil. The oil is gray because this is liquid moly with MOS2 additive. Hydraulic fluid. I'm gonna start taking apart the suspension as well. Everything needs a refresh here, and I wanna remove the shocks and send them out to be refurbished. There's a company in Poland that can do that. It's the sway bar removed. Gonna disconnect the brake line. Put a cap. Stop the leak. We're also going to upgrade the brakes, so the calipers are coming off. Massive lip on these rotors. There we go. The bearing is seemingly good. Are we gonna refresh that too anyway? Sway bar link removed. Well, ain't that cool? Guess we're gonna use a press to press this one out. Nah! I think I'm gonna leave these ball joints alone for now and then remove this entire assembly and use a press. Let's remove this cover here. Gotta be careful with these old connectors. This is actually a ball joint that's incredibly short. E31 has monoballs. Yeah, baby. I can remove all of this together with the subframe, but I want to remove whatever I can now because it's a bit easier since everything is firmly in place. There we are. Hey! So this here is all strut assembly and it needs to be stripped completely. Need to remove the wheel bearing, this plate, the spring, and then I can send the strut out to be refurbished, but we'll do that a bit later. Oh, I'm so strong with one hand. Now we need to disconnect the steering shaft from the steering box. First we're gonna detach this hydraulic line here. This is coming down with the engine. Oh, that was easy. That's disconnected. Remove this air duct for the alternator. There we go. Uno más power steering line. Now we're gonna unbolt and remove the oil filter housing. There are two oil lines going to the block and this hydraulic line here. It bolts to the power steering pump and I can't get to the bolt, so we're simply going to disconnect it here at the junction. Plug that line and put it on the engine. There's the oil. Immediately glove that up. We need to disconnect two hydraulic lines from the steering box. First we need to remove this little heat shield. We have a positive cable here that we need to disconnect. We have two coolant lines in the back. That's the coolant lines disconnected. And now the wiring harness. Oh, that's already loose. That's good. We shall mark it. Unlike the X5, this car doesn't have biodegradable wiring. Ground posts there. EML. Now you should be able to lift all of this up. See, almost forgot the return fuel line. We need to disconnect that as well. And with that, we disconnected everything in the engine bay. Let's continue underneath. Now this massive rusty exhaust needs to come out. I sprayed down all of the bolts yesterday. That one is not coming off. That's completely rusty. Oh yeah, there's nothing left. Where's Nick Buckhurst when you need him? Oh, there you go. The muffler and this middle section are done. Too rusty to be reused, so we're gonna have to replace that. Whoa, whoa, whoa. How is that still hanging there? Oh, I mean, let go. And Superman. Oh, man. Solid floor, man. Solid floor. This car is really solid. No rust on the chassis whatsoever. A little bit here, but this is where the washer for the headlights sits. So there was rust there, and that's going to be easy to fix when they paint the car. But other than that, magnifique. This one here, the arm on the transmission is broken, and we'll need to weld that back. Now I need to disconnect the oxygen sensors, and I need to label them because you can mix them up rather easily. Just put tape around the cable. That popped loose. Could have removed them one by one. Why do it easier when you can make it more difficult for yourself? You know, come on. Yeah, you can remove them one by one, which is a lot easier. More crap. Squirrels and snails. How's the center shaft bearing? It is good. By the way, this stuff is excellent. Liquid Moly MOS2 Rust Loser. Works really good on rusty bolts. Oh, well, this one is loose. This is now no longer connected to the transmission, and the other three we can undo once the prop shaft is down on the ground. The center shaft bearing, we're gonna mark its position. On some models, I know you need to preload this bearing, and this one is not sitting straight, as you can see. The bolt is in the middle, and here it's all the way to the end. So I'm not sure what's going on. We'll have to check in the repair manual. That's not loose. All right, there we go. Nice. Lastly, the slave cylinder, which we can simply unbolt and put on the side. Oh, the professionalism here is. Now you can go up top and remove the shift knob. In the cockpit, oh, this already came off. How convenient is that? Perfect. That's all good to come down. Now I need to unbolt the shifter linkage from the body. And this bushing here is toast. let's go and unpack the hydraulic table. Here it is, hydraulic table that I bought online. It can lift up to 800 kilograms, which should be enough for the engine and transmission. Oh, these are metal. It's blue, so that's good. Is that how that goes? Whoops! Smooth. Shall we test it? Look at that, stripper podium right there. That's its max position. Oh yeah, now that I pushed the brake all the way in, this will work just fine. Anti-slip mat. Look at that. I have various rubber blocks here and hockey pucks. Lower the car on the locks. We're going to support the subframe on as many spots as we can, likewise the transmission and also rear end of the car. We are removing a massive amount of weight from the car, from the front end. So in theory it could tip over backwards, which is, unlikely because the car is level on the lift, but nonetheless we're going to support the rear end just in case. Oh, that's the max. To lower the car a bit more. Activate the brake. Rear end of the car is supported as well. Here's what we have. The rear end of the transmission is supported, the front end of the subframe as well as the engine. And then we have a jack stand in the back supporting the rear end of the car. You're gonna start by loosening the transmission cross member. Now you're gonna start with subframe bolts. So this one here I should have removed earlier. This is not part of the subframe. Nice. Ho, ho, ho. Let's go around and just make sure everything is coming down as it should. It's all good. All right, Captain, we are clear for landing. It's out. That was smooth. All right, so I'm going to release the tension from the rear end. Release the brake. Feeling very masculine. The mighty M70 B50 V12 engine with the 6-speed manual transmission is out. It wasn't too bad. It took me about a day and a half, 2 days between filming and whatnot, so overall, really good progress. Now we're gonna leave this as it is. I'm gonna go home, have dinner, couple of cervezas, and then we're gonna pick this up tomorrow morning. Good morning. First thing we wanna do here is get the engine off the table because this isn't exactly stable. Accidental rhyme there, but immediately there's a problem. Someone at some point removed the intake manifolds on this engine, and when they did that, they forgot to put back 2 hooks, one that goes here and there, and those are the lifting points where you can grab the engine and take it up in the air. The one in the back I can put back easily, the one in the front not so much. I would need to remove the manifolds. So I think what we're gonna do is support the engine on the sides here, that way it can't tip over, and start stripping it, remove all of the wires and stuff. Then I can put back the hook in the back, and I think if we grab it here, we can just lift all of this up in the air, get it out on the ground, and separate it from the transmission. Now that we're a bit more secure, we can proceed. Short interruption of the program, we have an important announcement for E31 community. Throughout this project, you will hear me say that many parts for these cars are NLA, which stands for no longer available. The particular part is omitted and no longer produced. The simple reason for that is the companies that used to make these parts for BMW back in the day, they no longer exist, so the parts cannot be reproduced. Thankfully, E31 community is one of the best communities in the world, where owners actually take matters into their own hands and start re-engineering and reproducing parts that are NLA. One of those parts is the fuel pump assembly, and we have Ed from California who successfully re-engineered the whole thing from ground up. In front of you is a brand new fuel pump assembly, which is no longer available from the dealer. He actually improved it and made it better. Every single E31 that I revived that had original 30-year-old fuel pumps, I had to replace them because they were either completely dead or super weak. Then they had rubber lines here that would crack, and most importantly, the housing itself had a flaw. They would crack on the top here, so you would get fuel leaks and fuel smells inside of the car. So he actually reinforced the top of this housing so it can no longer crack. I mean, this thing is absolutely beautiful. Everything is brand new and just put together really well. They were also stress testing them like crazy and they hold up beautifully. This unit costs $900, and if you think that's too much, just stop and think for a minute. Back when this was available from the dealer, it was around $2,000, and like I said, it had flaws. And right now, if you just want to buy original Bosch fuel pumps separately, they're around 250 bucks. So for 900 bucks, OEM plus reinforced bulletproof fuel pump assembly for a part that doesn't exist anymore, that's a hell of a deal and fantastic contribution for the E31 community. Thank you very much, Ed. At the moment, I have some cheap fuel pumps in the car, which I just use to get the car running. But once the time comes, we're gonna swap this unit in, and it's gonna go perfectly with the theme of this project, which is OEM Plus. I'm gonna leave the link to Ed's website in the description, so check it out. He wrote a really nice description about these fuel pumps. And if you have original fuel pump assembly in your E31, you're gonna need this sooner or later. Thank you, Ed, again. Let's start with the ignition wires. I'm gonna disconnect the alternator. I'm gonna get rid of this power steering line. This broken piece is actually NLA, so I'm not sure what I'm gonna do there. Can't find a spare one, not even used. On the front of the engine, we have 4 connectors, and it's very important to label them so we don't mix them up later. These 2 here are for cylinder identification sensors. This one is for bank 1, this one is for bank 2, and then these 2 are for crankshaft position sensors. You have one wire here, another one here, going down to the vibration damper. So we need to label them front and the back as well. Crank sensor, take a pick. Disconnect the injectors. You can remove the shifter mechanism. Look at that bushing, completely shot. I think we're going to remove the exhaust manifolds just to make things a bit easier. This thing had a massive oil leak from the upper oil pan. There's my cover that I lost a long time ago. There it is. We're gonna get fuel injectors out of the way. Disconnect the return line. Now we're gonna add the missing hook here. Unbolt the engine mount. I'm gonna go get the apple picker. I think I'm gonna get the subframe out of the way. There we go. Oh, it's heavy. That'll do for now. Time to clean up a little bit. Now I'm gonna unbolt the transmission. The length of the bolts is gonna be different here and there, so I'm just gonna make a template here and poke the cardboard. So only the two on the top are different, they're smaller. All right. Mein Gott, das ist oily. I don't know why, but I was expecting this transmission to be a lot heavier. But I can actually lift this. Well, it's not horrible. This, I think we can resurface. The clutch plate, I have a brand new one. And hopefully this can be resurfaced as well. So here's the thing about this manual transmission on the E31. The clutch kit has been discontinued for, I think, last 10 years. It doesn't exist. You can't buy it brand new. Thankfully, a good friend of mine, Saleh from Belgrade, gifted me a brand new original Zax plate for this transmission. So I have that. We can replace it. The pressure plate, however, not sure what we're going to do there. Hopefully this is salvageable. They can resurface it and it's in decent condition, but we'll see. And then the throwout bearing, I think that's discontinued as well, but I'll have to double check.
Upon some research, Johannes from extraclassics.de is able to refurbish the pressure plate and the flywheel. For the throwout bearing, I got lucky and I found one of the probably few remaining ones in stock with Beamer World. So we are good there as well.
But anyway, we're gonna leave this as it is for now. We're gonna focus on the shocks. We need to disassemble them fully so I can pack them and send them to Poland to be refurbished. First thing we're gonna do is remove the wheel bearing. Wheel bearing comes off super easily. This brake shield is actually in good condition, so I think we're gonna powder coat this. Be very careful with the wheel speed sensor. This guy costs 220 euros brand new. For one. Bag and tag. The springs, unfortunately, we can't replace because they're discontinued and they're specific to EDC shocks. So these are oil-filled shocks, therefore you can't test them by pushing the piston in. It doesn't work like gas shocks, so this doesn't mean they're blown, but judging by their age, they're probably not that great. Now I'm gonna remove the rear shocks, but first we need to disconnect the electrical plug.
Now you're gonna support the trailing arm. Now you're gonna go in the trunk of the car and unbolt it from the top. Precious taillights. Picked this up used about 2 years ago. Paid a lot of money for it, but this is another one of those parts that's no longer produced. And the taillights on this car are cracked. There we go. These are now ready to go to Poland to Nag & Gast. They specialize in shock refurbishment, and for E31 EDC shocks they have a special process. They're going to take them apart completely, change all of the components internally, paint all of this, and then they get bench tested as well, and we're going to get a small paper saying how they perform. And in the end they're going to be brand spanking new struts and shocks. So remember how they look right now, and let's see what they're going to look like when they come back. Look at this engine mount. Split in half and stuff living in it. That one is a bit better, but it's bad as well. Let's remove the steering box. Oh, why did I put it on one? We gotta pop this ball joint. There it is. So the steering box, I have to research if this is something that I can refurbish on my own, or I'll just send it out to someone else. The subframe is gonna go for sandblasting and then powder coating. So far, this has been incredibly enjoyable. E31 is so well put together, so well engineered. There hasn't been a single moment where I thought, okay, that doesn't make sense. I can't get to that bolt, or how to remove this or that. It just came apart beautifully. It is as beautiful to look at as it is to work on. So I'm just incredibly happy here. I think we're gonna park this episode here. I need to send out a lot of parts to be refurbished. And every single part that we just removed is going to be reconditioned before we put it back on the car. For example, the starter, the alternator, AC compressor, I can get that brand new, I think. And whatever is on the shelf over there, it's either going to be replaced with brand new parts or reconditioned. And some of the parts are going to require special tools and whatnot and knowledge. And such parts I'm going to send out to be refurbished. But whatever we can do here in the shop, we are going to film that, and I'm gonna do it myself. I also ordered a ton of parts for this car. Custom headers are coming from Soara Performance from Ukraine. They look beautiful. They're actually on their way here. I also ordered sportier Debilas camshafts. That's going to take about 4 weeks to be produced. I also managed to source and buy original 4-pot ATE brake calipers, so we're going to refurbish that. I also bought 315 LSD, and Racing Diffs from Belgrade sent me a beautiful package with all of the parts that we need to refurbish that differential. So that's something we're going to do. And looking at the chassis right now, it's in beautiful condition. I mean, really, there's no rust anywhere, but it's incredibly dirty. So I think what we're gonna end up doing here is clean everything with dry ice. I need to find someone that can come out here, and then I'm gonna remove as many parts as I can, drop the rear subframe as well, and just blast the entire chassis. And transmission as well should look beautiful because it's going to be mated to a beautifully put together V12 engine that's going to have a lot of parts that are going to end up in the vapor blasting cabinet. I mean, in the end, we're going to have one mint looking 8 Series. This is one of my favorite cars that BMW ever built, so I'm just going all out with this project. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this episode. I'm gonna go get a haircut, and I'll see you in the next one. Tschüss!